How's it going, everyone? I'm Alex with AC Flips. I'm a full-time six-figure Amazon seller. In today's video, I'm going to show you the repricing strategy that I've used over the last year to make thousands and thousands of dollars in sales. Now, if you're a newer seller and you're not using a repricer, you may notice that a lot of times the price is going to change from what you listed at. If you are sending shipments to FBA, if you list something at $50, there's a good chance that by the time it arrives to Amazon and is able to be processed and listed as available, the price will probably change from $50. It could be only a few cents difference, but that few cents is enough to make sure that you don't get the sales on the listing. Now, I know some people that manually source, right? They check either daily or a couple times a week, and they will change their price to the new buy box based on, looking at what it's currently at. But for me, I don't want to have to do that. That's just too much work for me. So I pay for Bqool, and Bqool is a nice repricer that I've been using for a while, and it's done a lot of good things for me. So I'm going to show you my Bqool setup for FBA products as well as FBM products. There's plenty of times where I send a shipment in, the product is available to sell, and then my product's not selling. Turns out I needed to go to Bqool, check the listing, see that it's not actually at the buy box price, and then set up my repricer, and then all of that stuff starts to sell immediately as soon as the repricer is set up. So I want to show you guys how I set that up. Let's jump onto the computer. All right, so we'll start by going to bqool.com, spelled a little different. It is bqool.com. That'll take you to your dashboard, but we want to be on the repricing rules tab. What Bqool offers is a couple of AI repricers. These will be a little bit more specific and change based on the change in buy box. But on the main subscription, you only have a certain amount of items that you can list with the AI. So I'm going to show you how I have my FBA repricer set up as well as my FBM repricer, so you guys can hopefully get the buy box more often. All right, so to create a new rule, you can add new rule, but I'm just going to show you my FBA reprice, which it walks you through the same process, but we want to be on rule-based rule builder, right? We don't want conditional repricing. We don't want the AI powered. We want rule-based. It'll bring you to this page. We obviously are doing a custom rule, and I just labeled mine FBA reprice. Anything to signify that it's going to be FBA products listed that are going to use this repricer. So we'll go to the next tab here. So this is going to help us define how we want to identify with our competitors. So obviously we are competing with the buy box price. So the competitors we want to reprice with is FBA sellers, non-featured FBA sellers, and then unfortunately Amazon. If we are on some of those listings, we want to be able to match Amazon's buy box. All right, so we'll scroll down to the custom settings. These first two are seller fulfilled Prime offers. A lot of people don't get Prime as a merchant fulfilled, so we're just going to leave those FBM. We can also exclude seller IDs, exclude sellers with free shipping. Those types of sellers don't really stand out to the repricer, so we don't need to include those. But we do want to exclude sellers with a positive feedback rating lower than 65%. You can change this and make it a little higher if you want, right? So then it's only going to match the buy box price of sellers that have a high feedback rating. Maybe they're getting the buy box more often. But I feel if you're at least above 50%, right, you're getting the seller, you're matching the buy box of the sellers who have at least a 50% feedback rating, which is a pretty wide range, right? Most sellers are going to be above 50. If for some reason a seller that has below 50% positive rating gets the buy box, you won't match with them. Just kind of one of those things we keep on. We also want to exclude the total feedback count lower than 0. If they don't have any reviews or no feedback, we won't reprice with them. Pretty basic, just you'll see certain sellers that'll say just launched. We don't want to match with them, but we do want to match with the ones that do have a feedback score. 1 or above is basically all we need. And then we want to exclude sellers with back ordered product, right? This is important. We don't want to match the buy box with sellers that are back ordered or can't meet a certain delivery promise or don't offer Prime shipping. This kind of counteracts all of that. And then the sellers with handling time more than 3 days doesn't really matter. Item condition, we want, that doesn't matter as well because everything we're listing is new. So we'll go to the next tab here. So get the buy box. This is a pretty important one. And hopefully you guys follow this and have the same mentality as well. Certain sellers have a few different thoughts about this category, but hopefully you guys align with what I'm going to say here. So the buy box winner found between your min and your max, right? So when the buy box winner is above your minimum price, we want to match the buy box and we don't want to go any cents below. We don't want to go above, right? We just want to match the buy box. Some people will match the buy box and then drop it by 1 cent. Basically, this is just going to trigger other sellers to be dropping theirs by 1 cent, and then it's going to cause a tanking effect. We really don't want that to happen, especially because we're selling on these listings. And if other sellers have it set up to drop 1 cent as well, then there's basically going to be a race to the bottom, and everybody's going to keep lowering their price, and then all of a sudden you're not profitable anymore. So we just want to match the buy box. That's really all that matters. So the next one is when the buy box winner is below your minimum. I have used autocomplete. That's basically going to match the buy box of the next best seller on the listing to get that buy box. So if you have your minimum price set to $15, the buy box is at $14, but the next best seller is listed at $15, it's going to match your buy box to that $15. And when the buy box winner equals your minimum price, obviously you want to use your minimum price and match that. So when the buy box winner is found above the max price, right, we want to match that max price. You can go more if you want, right? If you want to go, up $1 or up a few cents, you can do that as well. I just don't have anything here because a lot of times my max price is pretty high, so it's not going to really hit that max price. When I'm specifically repricing, I'll leave the higher end or the max a little bit higher than normal, just in case, something were to happen and the buy box does go pretty high. We're not missing out on those profits. When the buy box winner is found below the minimum price, we're just going to have it match our minimum price, right? We're not going to go any higher than that. Obviously, if someone's listing below the minimum, we want to be at our minimum to be as close to that as possible. Also, we don't really want this one to trigger as often. Our minimum price should be below kind of what that buy box range is. And if it's not, and we have to keep dropping our price, you might see some tanking happening, or you just didn't price in a low price on your minimum price when purchasing the product. So when the buy box winners are found below the minimum price and above the max price, we're just going to list at the minimum. Pretty straightforward. When there's no buy box winner, we want to list at the minimum price. So basically, when there is no buy box on a listing, the person who's going to get the sale is going to be the lowest price. So it makes sense that we want to match to our minimum price. When you are the only seller on the listing, obviously we want to get the most profit out of that. We can price it however we want. For the repricer, we're going to use the max price. Makes it simple that it's going to try to make us the most profit. This one, I just have when buy box winner is excluded by your settings, do not reprice. Set at what it last was set to. I don't have anything in this category. Minimum price protection settings, when your adjusted price equals or is below the minimum, we're just going to use the minimum. So when we are FBA sellers, we only want to compete against other FBA sellers. We don't want to compete against Amazon or other FBM sellers. And then when we're selling FBM products, we want to compete against FBA because a lot of times the FBA products will have the buy box more often. And then obviously if other FBM sellers have the buy box, we want to compete with them as well. So this first one is basically saying when you have the buy box, don't change the price. You don't want anything to trigger you out of the buy box. There's a couple different categories here, but for me, I just want my price to be the buy box. If I have the buy box, why change it? Again, same competitors as before. If we're an FBA seller, we want to compete against other FBA sellers, non-featured FBA sellers, and then Amazon. We don't want to compete against FBM sellers because a lot of times FBM sellers have their price lower than FBA, so we want to compete with those competitively priced. And I don't have anything in the bottom, so we will go to the next. Schedule, I don't have any schedule set here. Some people will try to increase their price overnight or something like that, but I just don't have any schedule set. This is repricing around the clock, 24/7. And then we have our overview. So that is about it for my FBA repricer rule-based settings. Now we can go back to our repricing rules page, and I have my FBM, so I'll look at that, but then we're going to add another rule, and we're going to emulate these FBM rules. So again, I have the name changed FBM, so I know when I list something FBM, I can know which one to use. A lot of these are going to be the same, but some of these are just going to be a little bit different. When we're not in the buy box, we want to compete with the lowest price for FBM. A lot of times this is because FBM sellers, like I mentioned earlier, it's hard to compete with FBA. If there's FBA sellers on the listing, more than likely they're going to get the buy box more often. So if we are an FBM seller, some of the reasons we'll get the buy box is because we are the only ones in stock, or we have a quick delivery date compared to other FBA sellers. Other than that, FBA sellers are probably going to dominate the listing most of the time. So we want to just have the lowest price so we look enticing to the customer. Again, we want to compete with everybody because we don't want to skimp out and not get a chance at the buy box. Because we don't choose all the competitors. So right here, the seller fulfilled prime. Like I said, I won't be getting that very often, but if I have a price to match, it'll be with FBA sellers. When merchant fulfilling, it's a little bit different with an FBA, and people can have a certain feeling against how you ship things, or how well you did compared to how Amazon would have fulfilled the order. So we want to increase our ratings a little bit higher here. So we want to exclude sellers below that 85% positive feedback rating, a little bit higher than our 65% on the FBA. But like I said, FBM sellers, some of them don't do a good job with shipping and they get bad reviews, and we don't want to match with those sellers. This is another one where we want, somewhat of an experienced seller with FBM to match to. So our feedback count is to 5 now instead of 0. And then again, we want to exclude sellers with back-ordered product because they might be repricing for no reason when they don't have anything in stock, or it won't be in stock for a while. So now to get the buy box, this one's going to be a little bit different as well. When competitor is above the minimum price, we want to be with the competitor's price. Right, like I said, we don't want to drop it a cent, right? That's not going to help anybody on the listing. It's just going to cause tanking or a race to the bottom. Again, I want to use the autocomplete when it's below the minimum. And then when it equals the minimum, we're going to use our minimum price. So now when the buy box is outside of our min and max, obviously we want to match the max, we want to match the min. And then when all competitors are below our minimum price or above the max, we're just going to list it at the minimum. Similar to before, when we are the only seller on the listing, we want to use our max price, obviously. And then when competitors excluded by our settings, do not reprice, same as before. The minimum price protection settings, when the adjusted price equals or is below the minimum, we just want to use our minimum. This kind of prevents us from the repricer screwing up and dropping our price really low because maybe someone wanted to liquidate their product and drop their price way down. We'll be stuck at our minimum here. So towards the bottom, these advanced settings, now that we're selling FBM products, we want to compete against Amazon, FBA, and then other FBM sellers. And this is to stay in the buy box, right? If we have the buy box as an FBM seller, again, we don't want to be changing that price. We don't want the algorithm to trigger and then we lose the buy box because we changed our price to something that Amazon didn't like. We're going to keep all of the same competitors. Again, I don't have a schedule. This is going to run around the clock. And that is all we have for the FBM reprice. Pretty similar to the FBA reprice, except it just has a couple of rules based on, against our competition. We, like I said, the FBM sellers don't get the buy boxes often. So if we have to price down to get the buy box, that's kind of what it takes. All right, hope you guys found this repricing video helpful. I would recommend, if you're doing anywhere from, $1,000 to $2,000 to $3,000 in sales, you might want to consider getting a repricer. Bqool isn't too expensive, but you want to start matching the buy box as often as possible. It's only going to give you a better chance at sales, and the profit that you make from those extra sales are only going to pay off the Bqool subscription that much quicker. So if you guys liked the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.